What's up guys, welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/NuclearRevenge. Alright, this story's called 3 Kittens and a Cat Prepare to Have Your Life Ruined. Posted by user Kitten Avenger. Okay. Throwaway for obvious reasons. So first, a bit of backstory. My wife and I live in a small town near the outskirts, i.e. it's all houses and no flats there. This will be very important later on. We also had a retired neighbor. We'll just call her Karen. Now, Karen, we found out, had a bit of a history. More exactly, her husband beat a worker to death when he caught him stealing, and then covered it up by hanging him in the forest. He managed to get away with it due to some political and police connections. The husband died in the meantime, but everybody still remembered it. Small city mentality. And she was an absolute outcast. That was probably exacerbated by her being an absolute Karen. Now that is over, let's get into the meat of it. So over a year ago, we adopted a cat to go alongside our tomcat. Surprisingly for us, they had kittens quite quickly. 3 of them, some 2 months after we adopted her. So we were raising them up, thinking about who should we give them to, when suddenly, both she and the kittens disappeared. We found just one of the kittens in terrible agony that night. Her, I don't know what to call them, screams had woken us up. She died before we got to the vet. We already had our suspicions, which were confirmed by the vet. Broken glass. Given that the kittens always followed their mother, what we suspected happened was that Karen put a bowl of meat and glass, and the cat found it and shared it with the kittens. My wife wanted to go to the police. I had better ideas in mind. I should mention that the fence between us is an old one made of chicken wire with a lot of holes. Very easy to cross. So the next Sunday when Karen went to church, she was very religious, I went to check through her house. Guess what I found in the trash? 2 other kittens and the cat. And so I set my plan into motion. Next week on Sunday, I went into her house again. This time, I had come prepared. I had cleaned everything flammable between our house and hers. Once inside her house, I staged a little accident. She had a very flammable carpet. One well-placed turned candle, and it started. So Karen comes home and sees that it's all burning. Most people would stop at that. We didn't. By now, my wife was fully on board. Seeing Karen there homeless, afraid, and all around desperate, we offered her to stay at our place for a while. Good neighbors, as we were, everyone else would have told her to step off. She knew. On the condition she tells us the truth about the cats. We promised we weren't interested in pressing charges. We just wanted closure. Obviously, I had a hidden recorder on me, and when we let her inside, she tearfully confessed everything, saying how much she was sorry, how she wished she could make it right, yada yada. So now I had a recording. That was enough for quite a lot of criminal and civilian charges. Cruelty to animals, destruction of property, and emotional trauma. But I wanted to go for one more. The next week, after she brought all her stuff in, we served her an absolutely delicious lunch. Duck with mashed potatoes. The only thing was, her portion had a crap ton of laxatives. So after she started crapping her guts out, we called for an ambulance, insisting she should go to the hospital. So Karen goes to the hospital and finds out there was nothing wrong. Pretty pissed, she comes back to our home to find all her stuff on the street and me and my wife on the fence telling her to step off. The main gate to our courtyard, however, was left partially open on purpose. We also told her we would be pressing charges on the cats. Now the entitled, angry, and scared bimbo that she was, what do you think? Did she take the bait? Of course she did, and she lounged right through the gate to discover both me and my wife had 2 wooden sticks on us that we promptly used to knock her teeth out. We then pressed charges on everything. Damage to property, the cat and kittens were technically our property. Emotional trauma, killing the cats and us finding the one that somehow survived for a few hours wailing out in the courtyard. Breaking and entering, and attempted assault. In the end, she was sent to 10 years in prison and had to pay $10,000 in damages, mainly for the attempted battery and psychological trauma. Really funny thing is, she kept all her money in the house that burned burned down with the house. Wait, okay, that was worded kind of funny. So no, her money was not in a separate house that happened to burn down with the house that burned down originally. No, it was the same house. I'm just stupid. So if she lives long enough to get out of prison, she will be dirt poor. Edit. Thanks for the platinum, you kind stranger. Also, to answer the main questions in the replies, why weren't you prosecuted? Well, the only criminal acts were the trespassing and the arson, both of which cannot be proven. As for whether Karen had any connected family, the answer is no. She and her murderer husband had no children. Both him and his odious kin in the police have since died of natural causes. She's like 70 now. Wow. That's terrifying and very real. That's why it's terrifying, actually, in my eyes. Why? I don't understand her justification for why would she want to? That's messed up. Just those poor cats, dog. Those poor cats, dog. All right, this story's called "He Almost Killed My Sister. I Almost Killed Him Too." Okay, this is my first post ever on Reddit. Sorry for all the mistakes. English is my second language. By the way, I'm on phone. Characters: sister. How unexpected. Never drank or took any kind of drug and never smoked weed before. Damn, bastard. Destroyed life guy. He's the weed dealer at his school. Me, medic emergency. Okay, so let's start. We live in a small city with primary school only. I was already out of school, but my younger sister was still in. She went to class with one guy that had some problems with cops before. Remember that. At the end of the school year, all classes that were ending had a small party to finally ending this bullcrap, as they called it. There were something about 60 people, and they started to drink. Everyone at that party was under the age of 18, which is the legal drinking age. Okay, so the start, in short. As they were drinking, he wanted her in other ways, I'm assuming. He drugged her and violated her in a horrible, horrible way. After the party, we had to search for her. We found her sleeping in the forest. She had blood all over her clothes. We called an ambulance and they took her to the hospital. She had some broken bones, scratches, marks from choking, and something with her. Okay. Hospital called the police and it started. She told them almost everything, from where they bought the alcohol, etc. And then told us other parts. Parts like people that were at the party and who was swinging around her. As she told us about Dan, I almost exploded from all of that anger in my soul. But I said to myself, he almost killed her. You have to show him his part of it. Planning the revenge, in short. Plans started to form in my head. My neighbor was a police officer. This is important later. I told my friends in town every time they see him to call me. They did it almost every day. Plan was easy. Every time I saw him, I would call my neighbor to check someplace. I knew he was high almost all day. I knew places where he smoked weed. I knew that he could go high everywhere. Revenge part. This'll be juicy. As I promised to my sister, I'll destroy him. First strike was anonymous calls to police that I saw some underage kids drunk. My neighbor and other officers went there every single time and checked him. Once they caught him high, problems started for Dan. As he had problems with the police before, they took him to the police station and kept him there for 8 hours, and the entire time they were hard on him. He said some things, but never said where he got the weed. He got out with a small fee, about 50 euros. After 2 weeks of all-day calling police, I saw him in the club. I went to him and told him, your life is gonna be a living hell, and I'll be the last thing you see before you pass out. He got scared and left the club immediately. Not important, but I wanted this here. I went to vacation for a week. I was planning how to make his life more crappy all the time. As I came back, magic started to happen. I went with my friends to shops. I literally saw him dealing weed in the shop. So I called shop security. They had it on cameras. Now I thought, finally, this guy will get all he deserves. Hell no. He got a €1,000 fee and home checks every week. But this wasn't enough. I was still pissed. More pissed than you can imagine. I would read it how he wrote it, but I feel like that wouldn't be the same message. We went with friends to the pub and we saw him. I don't know what happened to my mind. I was drunk and I had enough of him. I came behind him and took his hand and we went to the toilets. First, I was only pissed, but then we argued a little bit more loudly, but he wanted to leave. I stood in front of him and said, "You're not getting out of here." He pulled a knife out of his pocket and the only thing that was on my mind was, "You are him." My eyes saw red. Adrenaline went through my body. He wanted to go and started walking toward me. I gave him his first punch directly to that triangle between the ribs. He couldn't breathe. Then second punch directly on the nose. He fell on the ground. I crouched and started to beat the crap out of him. I can't exactly tell if he went off, but after half a minute of punching him, someone striked and pulled me off him. I simply left the pub and they had to call an ambulance. He had several broken ribs and a broken chin. He was in intensive care for a week. Day after, this police officer showed up at my door. They wanted to talk with me. But then my hero neighbor came to them and said, "He wasn't in the pub. We were drinking on my porch." This guy saved my ass. I can't thank him enough. What happened next to Dan? He got arrested after a month for selling drugs. Then he went to jail for young delinquents for a year and a half. My revenge was done. Then I said to my sister what I did. She didn't cry. She came to me and hugged me and said, "Thanks for beating the crap out of him. Sorry for all the grammatical mistakes and thanks for reading the whole story." Edit 1. Sister's okay. It's been a year. Thanks everyone for the care. Well, first of all, I'm glad your sister's doing great, and that was really sweet of you to pursue revenge so thoroughly. Hopefully, what's his face learned his lesson. I don't even remember his name because he was so stupid and doesn't deserve that. Did they even say his name? Oh, his name was Dan. That's what I thought. Sorry, I'm dumb. This story's called In Good and Bad Times. Hi there. I have a small story to share. It's my grandmother-in-law that shared this with me and my wife last night. However, this is not really Nuclear Revenge or Pro, but I didn't know in which subreddit to share this, as it involves quite some disturbing thought. Also, the usual, English is not my prime language, and on my mobile phone, sorry. My grandmother is fairly wealthy. Thanks to family money and a few good investments, she built up her inheritance to what it is now. Due to never having to work and enjoying the finer things in life, a bottle of white wine a day keeps the doctor away, she had quite the circle of friends that are quite wealthy or successful themselves. It's like a cliche from a movie. This story involves one of her friends. I will call her friend Maria, and her husband will be named Joseph. Maria and Joseph were long-time married. They started with a small furniture business. Maria was a salesperson and Joseph was responsible for buying the new collections. While Maria had to stay in the country and keep an eye on the shop and the kids, Joseph could venture through Europe in search of new, cheap, but nice furniture to flip with a huge profit. It all started fine. Kids were growing up and the shop got quite successful, eventually becoming one of the biggest ones in the country. This thanks to the mutual efforts of Maria and Joseph. However, dark clouds started to form in their marriage. Joseph wasn't only looking to score furniture, he also scored loads of women in other countries, leaving Maria alone for weeks while he scored a few couches and slept on some as well. This is the pre-digital era, so no mobile phones yet. Only the promise to send a letter once in a while. During their life together, Joseph would cheat on Maria every time he saw the chance. After a while, he didn't even care anymore if Maria knew. Would even bring his mistresses to the home city to spoil them with fancy restaurants. Note, this was a different time. Women's rights are established now, but this wasn't always the case. When Maria decided that it was enough, the abuse began. Mentally as well as physically, he started to abuse her for a long period in their marriage. She couldn't leave him because of the kids, because of her lifestyle, and because of the business. And he knew, so she endured. And every time she decided to fight back, painful consequences happened. He was the man, even having intercourse with or without her permission to establish his rights as the man. Later in their life, they became elders, gave the shop to their kids, and retired. Decided to take it easy. Maria long lost her interest already in Joseph, but still couldn't leave him. When money is involved, people tend to endure a lot, and Joseph got sick. Really sick. A combination of Parkinson's and cancer, eventually ending up in a wheelchair. Maria, like every good old wife, decided to nurse him till she couldn't do that anymore. In my country, you have have something like euthanasia. If you still have a good mind and you have a lot of pain, you can go to the doctors and the notary and draft a paper that whenever you cannot care for your own anymore, you can commit legal suicide. Simplifying terms. Note, it's important to say that the spouse has to keep the official letters and make the final say, because the person it involves often doesn't have the correct mindset anymore. And thus, her revenge began. Joseph got worse. Joseph got into hospital and his cancer started to infest his body. He was a shade of his former self, having pain all day, and morphine could only help so much. Even though he was in the hospital for weeks and weeks, even though he begged and begged to Maria to hand over the euthanasia papers, she simply smiled and said no.
Which papers?
The first week he got into the hospital, she burned the papers. For weeks to come, he begged to die. For weeks, Maria was at his side and simply said,
"No, maybe tomorrow."
Simply watching her husband fade away, hearing his pain, his begging, she would always answer that this is what he deserved. To the exterior world, Maria was a caring wife, and Joseph was simply too far gone to make sense if he rattled about the papers to someone else. 4.5 weeks in the hospital, and Joseph died. A not so nice death, painful, gruesome, exactly on the terms that Maria decided how he should die. I found this tale quite disturbing. Maria got her revenge on her husband, giving him hope that it could be his last day and the pain will end, but crushing it every day again as well, to let him suffer in a cancer-infested body and to die on her terms, slowly. Teal dear, nah, thanks for reading. I'm not sure I'm thankful for reading that. I'm kidding. I mean, obviously, it's what I'm signing up for when I'm choosing to read from this subreddit. I'm not gonna say he didn't have it coming. Okay, that's 100%. But oh man, you know me, I'm a sucker for stupid morality. And so like obviously this was like decades and decades of just him oppressing her, and eventually what was originally just rage and her lashing out back at him, only to, be met back with. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.